Hey, welcome back everybody to the Fishing with Brewski YouTube channel, where we talk about everything fisheries management related and about what you can do to change the situation that the vast majority of the people in North Carolina, specifically the anglers, are not very happy about. Now, some very good news this week. I had been hearing rumors that the DMF got called to Raleigh. That was just confirmed. There are a lot of conversations going on. Now is not the time to let up, guys. Now is not the time to let up. The other side is ramping up as well. We've seen some new propaganda. They pulled an old guy out of the mothballs, and they've got him on YouTube making some of this wild, very pro-commercial, very skewed propaganda. I'm gonna pop him up here really quick. Please don't go to his channel. Don't leave comments. All these things drive the algorithm to make him be more visible. Just don't go to the channel. Don't leave comments. I'll leave some on there for the people who might be getting tricked by the propaganda to come and see the truth about flounder. Don't really need any help there, but just so you guys know, this is actively a war. And if you look at the number of times his stuff got shared, there are a lot of people involved trying to make sure that that message gets out there more than our message. So again, very good news. We're going to highlight our politicians this week. Turns out that our form emails apparently are just being seen as spam, so we really need to be calling individually. Basically, with that same message from last week's video, all the flounder have been allocated to roughly 0.4% of the licensed fishermen in the state. A $250 million industry, the recreational flounder industry, has been completely given up in order to preserve a $5 million industry. It's also worth noting, if you talk to some of these representatives, that 90% of the seafood that is consumed in North Carolina is already imported. And from what we saw in The Truth About Flounder, with people mislabeling imported seafood and calling it local, that number might be even higher. Okay, so we're not going to lose our seafood. Most of the seafood you're eating is already imported. We could literally just take the tax revenue from the recreational fishing input, which is $250 million a year when we had a season, just the tax revenue off that. And we could pay the commercial fishermen, the few people that are participating in this, many, many times over what they're making, to just not go and do that. So for the greater good of the state, there is simply no argument to be had. Again, I'm not trying to hate on the commercial guys. I know you want to go out there and you want to do what you want. But if we look at this in the big picture, and mind you, I'm not including myself in this, okay? I do not go target flounder. Even when the season's open, I don't go. I just leave them alone because I understand the issues and I want to do my part to help, okay? So highlighting our politicians, let's call the Speaker of the House this week. Let's really just focus on one guy. Give him a couple calls. If you don't get through, everybody, and share this. Ask your buddies, like, hey, if you want this to change, look, this is the propaganda machine that's coming after us. This is how they do business. This is how they've kept things so wildly in favor of trawls in the sounds. This is how they've managed to do this. If you don't do the same, if you don't share these messages and get your friends involved and get them to make calls and say, look, this is not what North Carolina wants. Don't be rude. Just tell them this is not what North Carolina wants. We need your help to do the right thing here and make some changes so that we can have a better tomorrow for the vast majority of the people of North Carolina. Commercial guys, I'm more than happy to jump on board. Whatever you guys lose in revenue, let's get some bills passed to make sure we keep you whole. Absolutely, especially the guys that do it full time. Anyways, so for today's real highlighted topic, we're going to have a little blast from the past. We're going to go back and listen to Mr. Frank White, a very renowned fisherman from many, many years ago. And we're going to see what the gray trout fishery used to look like back around the time when people were warning about what the trawls were going to do to this, okay? And please understand, for the guys that are saying there are plenty of flounder, I'm going to be as quick about this as I can, and I'm not trying to tell anybody that you're wrong, okay? I have no problem catching flounder whatsoever at all. Just to be completely clear, I absolutely hammer flounder. But if you look at this to make it as simple as possible, if there are 100 flounder, I'm going to hammer flounder. If there's 50 flounder, I'm going to hammer the flounder, okay? If there's 20, I'm going to work hard and I'm going to hammer the flounder. So this whole discussion is simply a matter of efficiency. And if you're one of these guys who is saying, you know, there's plenty of flounder, I totally understand why you're saying that, okay? But we need about half of those fish to stay in the water to make the crop for next year. It's about maximum yield, okay? It's not any kind of liberal movement. It's not any kind of tree hugger thing. It is about getting the most fish that we possibly can. And I want to catch the most fish that I possibly can. I want you to catch the most fish that you possibly can. And more importantly than anything, I want to make sure that my son can still catch fish, okay? And the bottom line is, if we wait until we can no longer catch flounder, then those fish may be suppressed so much that they simply cannot recover, okay? There is a threshold for natural mortality. If you don't know, flounder spawn way out in the ocean in the wintertime, okay? And they're coming back in as these teeny tiny little fish. As you can imagine, you know, pinfish, ringtails, a billion other species that are out there are not really heavily commercially harvested. They're not really heavily recreationally harvested. And their populations are in great shape. And if you're a tiny fish, no matter what species you are, it's a scary place to be, okay? The only thing that protects them is mass numbers from these big spawning groups. So we do have to listen to the DMF in this case and err on the side of caution, okay? If the DMF is wrong, guys, then we're gonna know relatively soon. And if we mess this up and we end up with too many fish, then me and you and all of our friends, we can go handle the too many fish problem real quick, okay? So again, you know, I'm not arguing with you guys. I know some of you are probably in areas where the flounder is better than it's been in a long time. And that absolutely makes sense too. Those flounder go out, they spawn in the ocean. And depending on the winds, it decides where they come back in to each area. Okay, I'm going to post a link in the description for the Southern Flounder Symposium. If you guys haven't watched this, if you don't know a lot of stuff about the biology of those fish, it will really help to put it in perspective. So there are definitely some areas out there where it's better than it's been in a long time for you guys, okay? It makes sense. I'm not trying to tell anybody, you know, that I don't want you to catch fish. I absolutely want you to catch fish. And most of the folks at the DMF, you know, in spite of what many people say, most of the folks at the DMF had nothing to do with the decisions to close the fisheries down in the way that they are. In fact, most of them are recreational fishermen. If you go and you listen to these people, you get to know them. You might just change your mind on it. If you don't, come to me and just show me why I'm wrong in this, okay? I'm not trying to win any argument. I don't have any particular goal or victory in mind at the end of the day, other than just not to completely destroy fisheries for my son. And that's why I want to show you this video from Frank White. Back in the day, I want to show you what gray trout used to be, and we sit around just pretending like this isn't a thing. We sit around pretending like we have not basically exterminated the stripers. Like, I mean, we have completely exterminated the stripers from most of our river systems with the exception of the Roanoke. Okay, guys, please remember, if you're catching striped bass in the Pamlico, in the Neuse, or in the Cape Fear, those fish are stocked by the Wildlife Resources Commission, okay? We can do genetic testing on them. The hatchery fish, we know when it's a hatchery fish. We can take fin clips and we have 100% certainty that the fish we are sampling are not native fish. Okay, guys? So the Roanoke is still there. It's not in the best shape, but let's not sit around and pretend like we haven't eviscerated some of these fisheries. And flounder is the next on the list. So if you want to help the NCFA, the people responsible for this 70-30 split, the people responsible for no recreational season, if you want to help them, then keep up this argument of there's plenty of fish. We should just have all seasons open for everybody, because that is what they want you to say. Okay, you're doing them the biggest favor by continuing to push that. All right, so let's get into it. Let's head back in time and listen to Mr. Frank White, what he had to say. It's very enlightening, guys. If you've never seen this before, he also has an episode out there somewhere where they filled a 100-quart cooler snagging flounder with weighted treble hooks, okay? I have not been able to find this episode to save my life, but I think it would do a lot to put into perspective that the declines in our fisheries are real. They are absolutely real. So, to Mr. Frank White, on the decline of the gray trout, what it used to be like and what it is like now. Call the speaker. Drive Raleigh insane. Be polite, but let them know that North Carolina's done with this. Out of here.
The film that I'm going to show you now was shot 15 years ago in Pamlico Sound, just a few miles from that film that you just saw. This is heading out of the other side of the Sound. Now, this film I showed you a few minutes ago was heading out of Belhaven. This is out of Hatteras, but it's all the same thing. You can take a boat of any size that's safe out there on that water and go to the middle of the Sound from almost anywhere. It's a big circle. All you got to do is just go put it in a launching ramp somewhere around the perimeter of the thing and head out until your depth finder tells you when you're in the proper depth of water. Now, it was a little rougher on this particular day, but we ran out about 7 or 8 miles out into the Sound, and I dropped a Hopkins spoon down. You can tell this film is 15 years ago. I was not bowed and stooped and gray and old and tired like I am now. This was my younger days, and I hadn't turned quite so gray-headed. I was fishing with two guys that I knew from Greenville, Jim Bordeaux and Joe Vernelson. Since this film was shot, Jim has left us. Jim Bordeaux, he worked for the public broadcasting system. He was a television technician. This is Jim. Jim had a heart attack and died not too long ago, a couple, 3 years back. This is Joe Vernelson from Greenville. We started catching fish immediately. Now, we had driven from Greenville to Hatteras and put in and run out in the Sound. It's a 4-hour drive one way. We were gone 10 hours. We drove down there 4 hours, went out in the Sound and fished a little less than 2 hours, went back and loaded the boat. In 10 hours from the time we had left, we were back in Greenville with 84 trout. When we first started fishing, we were keeping what we were picking up, but every time you would drop a Hopkins spoon down to the bottom, a trout would get on it. And finally, we quit taking the little ones, and by little ones I mean anything under 2 pounds. We started throwing back. We had a few fish in there that we had caught early that were under 2 pounds. But after a few minutes of this, and we were having trouble filming because everybody, you drop a spoon down, everybody would get a fish on. And of course, they have a thin mouth. They're called weak fish because of that tissue paper mouth they have. If you leave them on a lure down in the water while you grab the camera to take somebody else's picture, more often than not, they'll wear a hole in the mouth and get off. So I don't know how many we lost. The biggest fish we caught weighed 6.5 pounds. As I say, after the first few we caught, a dozen or so, we quit keeping anything under about 2 pounds. Anything under about 18 or 19 inches, we would throw back. We had a big ice chest, and when we left because there wasn't room in the ice chest for any ice. We filled it level full with fish, and we didn't want the fish to spoil. And we had all the fishing that we wanted. This was a typical day. This is what could happen 15 years ago, back in the 70s. This is a party boat. We quit fishing and started following this party boat for a while, cleaning up its trash. Everybody on board was drinking all sorts of canned drinks and everything like that. And I said, well, let's just get a little film here of policing up Pamlico Sound. So we quit fishing. We had an ice chest crammed full, absolutely solid, chock full. And so we went around there and picked up a few cans and waved at the guys in the party boat and said, how about not throwing your trash overboard? And went home. We were gone 10 hours. 8 hours of that was driving. We had 84 gray trout, most of whom weighed 2 pounds or more, anywhere from 2 pounds up to 6.5 pounds. Those days are gone forever, my friends. I will be back here in a minute with the clipping of the week after these very important messages. Well, that's the way it used to be, and as I say, it probably never will be that way again. Gray trout are no longer even considered a recreational fish in North Carolina anymore. The reason I keep hammering about Pamlico Sound is because it's our second largest estuary in this country. But in my opinion, it is the absolute most valuable body of water in the entire country and maybe on the entire planet, because it's temperate water, it's shallow water, it's fed by Gulf Stream waters, and it is a huge, enormous nursery. And it should be protected from all forms of netting and everything else. Now, let me correct one thing here. I've said several times on there that the bycatch is allowed 1,000 pounds a day. Those people are allowed to keep 5,000 pounds of those baby fish, and they get 3 or 4 cents a pound for them at the cat food factory, or they freeze them for bait, for crab pots, and they make fertilizer out of them. They do all sorts of things with them, but they are worth 3 or 4 cents a pound when they're only 3 or 4 inches long. And the bycatch compared to the commercial catch of the flounder and the shrimp and everything else that they catch is simply enormous. 5,000 pounds a day, but at 3 or 4 cents a pound, it will pay for the gasoline. And that's the reason that the commercial fishermen want that bycatch. Now, praise the Lord, the biggest newspaper down east has finally taken an editorial stand about this. This is called Cornering the Blues, and they're talking about haul seining bluefish, but they're also saying here something that I have been saying for many years. Shrimp trawling must be moved out of Pamlico Sound because of its unconscionable bycatch. 10 pounds of baby fish for each pound of shrimp on the average. Fish excluding devices on the trawls remain inadequate. We're getting help. Ask any guy from NAM on patrol how lonesome it gets out there on the point. I've been out there on the point for years. 2 years ago, I did the bluefish story that was done a few weeks ago in the newspaper. But it's nice to have company. It's a little late, but better late than never, and the fight continues. That's all the time we have. We will see you here next week. Please do not litter, and do yourself a favor. Take a girl fishing.
Shrimp that. I picked this up hard.
Am I crazy, or did he just seem excited about the amount of shrimp that was in that pool? Now, I know I've had commercial guys tell me they have a lot cleaner pools. Please, commercial guys, step in here and tell us about it, right? But this doesn't even make any sense for y'all. You know, I just seen spots the other day. A commercial guy, that's one of my friends, you know, posted spots for $5.50 a pound. If we're killing all these spots when they're too little to go to market, then why are we doing this? You know, the gray trout that are dying in there are too little to go to market. Those fish grow fast. If you just let them get to size, it's better for the commercial fishery too. This isn't about, you know, eliminating the commercial fishery, but man, there is a lot of waste. You could get so much more money out of these fish if we would just let them grow up. You know, we move the trawls outside, and we don't let them hammer right at the inlets either, right? Because they're just going to catch all the same fish anyway. As soon as they go to move, they'll just increase the effort and shift it one way. But we can still catch those shrimp in the ocean. Our states alongside of us down the East Coast, they all do this, and they are all successful. There is still a shrimp industry. So please weigh in here, guys. I know there's a lot of commercial guys out there that feel exactly the same way about this, okay? Guys, call the speaker. Let them know. Call them every single day until you get some kind of response, okay? You deserve a response. These people are our representatives. They do work for us just as much as they work for the rich people running the commercial industry that are lining their pockets. Let them know that North Carolina is done with this. I'm out of here. Thank you guys so much. Every little bit counts, okay? I know we don't feel important all the time. We feel like it's too big to do anything. But, I mean, the DMF's already been called to Raleigh. Now is not the time to let up. We don't let up, in fact, until this changes.